We came, we saw, he died.
You're listening to one of the Valkyries, Hillary Clinton, boasting about the killing of Gaddafi. It is a tragic situation that we are facing, and it's no laughing matter. But when you hear Hillary Clinton laughing after the killing of Gaddafi, and you have to hear this to believe it, you have to understand what we're looking at here is that we've gone from the ivory tower to the loss of power, literally in one administration. That's right. Write it down, steal it, and make it into a bumper sticker. I wrote it 5 minutes ago. From the ivory tower to the loss of power in one administration. You have 3 women being called the Valkyries because of their bloodthirstiness and the chooser of the slain. If you look into Norse mythology, you'll understand what the Valkyrie means, from Old Norse Valkyria, meaning chooser of the slain. In other words, female warriors who are now strutting about with their machismo, thinking that they are so wise because they have ordered the killing of enemies. Do they understand the unintended consequences of their position? Do they have any idea, Hillary Clinton and Samantha Powers and Valerie Jarrett and Susan Rice, do they have any idea what their leftist insanity has wrought? I don't think so. I believe they are surrounded by yes women to the extent that they don't even understand what they have created here. In the ivory tower, occupied by the academics in his administration, real men are not welcome. So it has fallen to 3 women, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, and leftist policy wonk Samantha Power, by the way, married to Cass Sunstein, to actually decide that we should go to war against Libya. This decision to go to war against Gaddafi, by the way, reveals just how flimsy Obama's foreign policy was in the testosterone-free zone known as the Obama White House. Believe it or not, I wrote this in Trickle-Down Tyranny on page 147. Trickle-Down Tyranny, page 147. I tried to warn you what was coming, but many people, well, I would say some of you who respect my writings and my broadcasts, bought the book, read the book, and said amen. But you have no idea what they have wrought, because we are not being told what Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, and Samantha Power have actually done. The fact of the matter is you've only seen the beginning of what's coming. The tyranny that they have unleashed in the Middle East will come home to haunt us here in this United States. Just yesterday on this program, when we were remembering the fallen on 9/11/2001, I asked you on this program, do you think the Muslim fanatics are still at war with us? Many of you said, not really. The media says, nah, it's old stuff. Don't remember any of that. But remember what I warned you. I warned you that they're still at war with us. And God knows that these attacks yesterday were coordinated to coordinate with 9/11. They were saying, we have never forgotten, we never will forget what we want to do to you. We want to subjugate you. We want to introduce Sharia law in your country. And with little help from Politico and CNN and MSNBC and the others on the left, we are winning. We are winning and you are losing. And so the fact of the matter is, while Gaddafi was a certifiably bad man, the unintended consequences of throwing him out is what you saw happening yesterday, where a U.S. ambassador was killed in the most violent way. I told you in Trickle-Down Tyranny, and I'm going to read you what I wrote, I told you that these Ivy Leaguers have everything backwards. In reality, the doctrine that they have created is a convenient excuse to selectively intervene in the internal affairs of our Middle Eastern allies in order to hasten their downfall and hasten the formation of Islamist governments. Emphasis on the last part of that sentence. Hasten the formation of Islamist governments. Why is it that Obama seems to want Islamist governments as our allies? In other words, Obama sees our allies in a way I don't. The fact of the matter is, Samantha Power, who was a strong proponent of this misguided doctrine, it is she who convinced Hillary Clinton to change her position to enter into combat in Libya and destroy Gaddafi. It was Samantha Power who did this. Like the president himself, the 3 women who declared war on Libya are all products of the leftist academic incubator that passes for an educational system in the United States. page 148, Trickle-Down Tyranny. The first thing you need to know about Samantha Power is that she's married to Cass Sunstein. I explained to you in Chapter 6 about Sunstein. He's the wacko leftist Harvard Law School graduate and former University of Chicago professor who was appointed by Obama to the position of regulatory czar. He hates gun owners and the Second Amendment, which protects the right of individuals to own firearms. He opposes hunting, a legal pastime of some 12 million Americans. He's described the suffering of animals inflicted by hunters as morally equivalent to slavery and the mass extermination of human beings. So he is a gun grabber. He hates the NRA. He hates private gun ownership in the United States. He is the husband of the woman who authorized the killing of Gaddafi. The fact is Samantha Power, his wife, shares Sunstein's and Obama's leftist credentials and their political views. She also graduated from the bastion of leftists that Harvard Law School has become. Power was part of the Obama presidential campaign until she called Hillary Clinton a monster and had to resign. After the election, she took a position as Obama foreign policy advisor. Remember what I'm telling you right now. This did not happen by accident. This death of the United States ambassador to Libya was not incubated overnight. In fact, it was Samantha Power who brought about this death, and it's only the beginning of many deaths to come because, as I said to you earlier, we've gone in one administration from the ivory power to the loss of power, not only in the Middle East but around the world. Samantha has been a longtime proponent of George Soros's so-called responsibility to protect. In fact, her position on this issue won her a Pulitzer Prize, another leftist award. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, another Ivy League law school egghead, she went to Yale, you see, is the second member of this unholy trio. During her husband's presidency, the Clintons requested that the subject of Hillary's senior thesis not be made public. That's because the thesis was entitled, "There is Only the Fight, an analysis of the Alinsky model," was highly favorable to the methods of radical leftist political organizer Saul Alinsky, who Hillary described as a man of exceptional charm. As I explained to you in Chapter 5 of Trickle-Down Tyranny, Alinsky is known as the father of community organizing, and we have him to thank for our community organizer president's views on many issues, including that on Libya and on Egypt. I'm not going to read this to you because I hope you have the book in your hands and you can pick it up from page 150. We're now going to go to the issue at hand today. That is the killing of a U.S. ambassador, which is an act of war, a declaration of war, and in fact, in any sane administration, there would have been a repercussion today. I need not tell you that you and I both know there will only be a Carter-esque type of reaction, and that is an outrage because it's only going to get worse. If you care to comment on this tragedy in the Middle East, where not only was the ambassador brutally killed, but 2 U.S. Marines who were there to defend him, by the way, who have names, were also massacred by the practitioners of the religion of peace. When I take your calls on the Savage Nation, try to contain yourself, because I'm not going to permit any violent statements to go out on the air. We all know where violence leads. We have to understand that the vermin in the media, instead of attacking the Islamists who killed our ambassador, joined up together and jumped on Romney for daring to criticize King Obama. We no longer have a democracy, do we? We have a monarchy in this country where the king is all-knowing, the king is all-powerful, the king is all-wise, and if the king is attacked or questioned even, anyone who questions the king is automatically an enemy of the state. A report came out this morning in the Weekly Standard by Daniel Halper that the press coordinated questions to ask Romney. They were talking to each other on an open mic, and they had a sound of the press talking to each other, CBS reporter to an unidentified reporter to another reporter, saying we all have to stick to one question. Just keep asking the same question on Romney. Keep asking him, do you stand by your statement or regret your statement? Here we now have exactly what I predicted in 1998 in my seminal speech at the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco, when I wrote a speech long forgotten entitled, "Beware the Government Media Complex." When you see men like the stooges at Politico acting as mouthpieces for Obama, and you see one stooge after another and I don't even have to name the alphabet channels because they're all about the same. It's enough to make you understand we've lost our democracy and how we've not only gone from the ivory tower to the loss of power internationally, but we've gone from the ivory tower to the loss of freedom of speech in one administration. We are in very deep trouble, and I want to conclude this monologue by saying thank God Mitt Romney had the guts and the brains to say what he said today. He said exactly the right thing. He should be praised for criticizing the dictator, the incompetent dictator that we have in the White House. I want you to listen to clip 2 and tell me if you think Romney was wrong or right. Go ahead.
I think it's a terrible course for America to stand in apology for our values. That instead, when our grounds are being attacked and being breached, that the first response of the United States must be outrage at the breach of the sovereignty of our nation. An apology for America's values is never the right course.
Good for him. And that was worthy of criticism in order to avoid having to criticize the madness of the Islamist mobs in the Middle East brought about by Obama and the Valkyries around him. I'll be right back. Savage. So Hillary Clinton said, we came, we saw, he died, and they giggled over it. I don't know if you missed that tape. It's astounding. It's on the internet somewhere. You've got to listen to this. This murder of our ambassador and his staff in Libya is a direct result not of the anti-Islamic film produced in the United States. It is a direct result of the Valkyries around Obama who are bloodthirsty and apparently on the warpath against the wrong forces. I want you to listen again to our Secretary of State after Gaddafi was murdered in cold blood.
We came, we saw, he died.
How do you feel about women laughing over the murder of a man? These are women who profess a love for human rights and justice for people on death row for 30 years. I'll tell you who has it exactly right. It's the Russians. The Russians are so smart compared to the idiots in the American media. I don't know what country they're living in this country. I want to read you something out of Moscow that just came out of the New York Times, written by Ellen Barry, because it's very telling. Upon learning of the violent death of the United States ambassador to Libya on Wednesday, many Russians responded with variations on, I told you so. You see, Russia has long argued that the West should not support popular uprisings against dictatorships in the Middle East, lest Islamic fundamentalism take hold. By the way, I'm going to pause here. That's exactly my position in trickle-down tyranny and on this radio show. Are these eggheads in the White House that naive to think that Islamists are going to love them? Are you people that nuts? So in other words, we put them in power and they thanked us by killing our ambassador. Is that it? So let me continue with the article. Vladimir Putin, then serving as prime minister, was especially enraged last fall after an angry crowd killed his ally, Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi, an event he later condemned as a repulsive, disgusting scene. He's absolutely right. They did not bring him to trial, by the way. They butchered him in cold blood, and Hillary laughed about it. I'll go back to the article. Since then, Russia has blocked Western initiatives to force Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad, from power, despite a bloody crackdown on the opposition. Russians' responses to the storming of the American consulate in Benghazi underlined the deep policy divide. A primetime news report pointedly juxtaposed images of Ambassador J. Christopher Stevens' death with Colonel Gaddafi's, pointing at their similarities. This is in Russia. Then cut the footage of Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton reacting to the Libyan leader's death with a cursory, wow. Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Magalov said that passions had been stoked by the uprisings and that they splash out in the form of terrorist acts, of massacres of non-believers, or an attack on embassies and consulates, close quote. See, the Russians have it exactly right. Our dummies from the academic left have no idea what their idiocy has wrought. But the Russians, who have been there and done that, understand what is going on in the world. To an extent, the American diplomacy corps should be embarrassed and learn from them.